The leader of South African community organization Operation Dudula, who has led various anti-immigrant protests, has been released on bail. And Lamini was arrested for house-breaking, theft and malicious damage to property. Conditions of the bail include surrendering his passport as well as refraining from contacting the complainant in the case. Meanwhile, a coalition of civil society organizations under the banner Kopanang Africa has called for South Africa's Home Affairs Minister to step down.
And what's important is that we are going to come out and emerge victorious. Yes. We are already victorious. Yes. But we're going to make sure that we hold each other's hands, even by the Basiomo, this is the time. There's no other time. This is the time that we live and die for our people.
We cannot have illegality running rampant in our society. It's got nothing to do with xenophobia. We have a system, right, inherited from the previous system, don't worry, from the previous apartheid regime, where illegality, as long as it is condoned by politicians, is fine.
I want to also thank the young people who are very capable of expressing their youth and being extremely violent in these difficult times for displaying high and maximum discipline and high morale.
And we maintain that there is no case here because you cannot do housebreaking and damage the property when you are in the company of the police. This is a politically motivated arrest.
Joining us live from Johannesburg, South Africa to unpack this is South African editor and journalist Dianne Hawker. Good evening, Dianne. Thanks for joining us on NC Continental Prime.
Good evening, Benga.
Now, Dianne, let's start by taking our viewers back. How did we get to this point of the arrest on Friday?
Well, it was quite an interesting development that we saw. Operation Dudula had held a protest march and what they called an operation the previous Sunday, where they said that they were going to raid houses which were believed to be drug dens. They ended up at the home of a gentleman by the name of Victor Ramarafe and went into his home and said that they were looking for drugs. However, they weren't able to actually attain anything there. And subsequent to that raid, the EFF arranged for Mr. Ramarafe to go to the police station in Soweto to lay a charge against Lamini. I think what's important to note also is that the police had gone along with, but didn't go into the house on the day of the so-called raid. So there were also quite a number of witnesses because there were also news cameras who were there at the time of the incident and actually saw the Operation Dudula members entering the property. And as a result, after Mr. Ramarafe laid that charge, the Dudula leader, Nhlanhla Lamini, was subsequently arrested on Friday.
Okay. Now, Dianne, Lamini's legal team argue that bail be granted on the basis that he is always accompanied by the police. What other supporting arguments were made to support his bail application?
Well, the other argument that they made was that the charges themselves were not necessarily, serious charges in the sense of that it wasn't, a charge of assault with grievous bodily harm or assault or a much, more serious charge. And generally, in the case of a charge like this, unless there's a very serious reason to detain someone, the NPA is inclined to let that person go. Another motivation that was made was that he isn't a flight risk. And as we saw, the NPA requested that his passport be handed over, which was done. So he's not likely to leave the country. The court also requested that he doesn't contact the victim in this case by SMS or in person, and also that none of the other Dudula members make contact on his behalf. And his legal representatives agreed to those terms. And as a result, he was granted that bail of 1,500 rand.
Thanks, Dianne. Dudula members claim that there is a political motive behind Lamini's arrest. What has the Economic Freedom Fighters Party said since about its stance on Operation Dudula?
Well, it's been quite an interesting thing to see these kind of personalities, battling over issues largely on social media, and as well when this charge was laid last week, the economic freedom fighters claiming that they are the true representatives of the community's concerns. And they were actually saying last week that the Operation Dudula members should not be stopping them from going to that police station to lay charges. We've also seen some commentary on social media where the Operation Dudula members, after these charges were laid, criticized the EFF and criticized EFF leader Julius Malema, saying that, he was voted into power by residents and now his party is laying charges against residents. So it will be interesting to see going forward this apparent tussle for power within the Soweto community over this issue. But the EFF has been quite clear. The reason that they have supported this gentleman, Victor Amarafe, is firstly because he is an EFF member, and secondly, because they believe that the actions of Nhlanhla Lux and the Operation Dudula members have not been within the law.
Okay. Now, after the release, we learned that Lamini addressed the supporters and media outside the court. What did he say?
Well, he spoke about them continuing their work, saying that even if something were to happen to him, he wouldn't want the movement of Operation Dudula to sort of collapse. We know that Operation Dudula has been trying to garner support in other areas. While it started in Soweto, it has branched out to Hillbrow, and today he made a call to say other communities where there are concerns and issues, they need to start mobilizing themselves. We know that they were also intending most recently to branch out to KwaZulu-Natal as well, but they hadn't actually held that gathering on Sunday as planned. So essentially just trying to continue to garner support and saying that the movement should not be built around him as an individual, but rather around the similar concerns that the members have.
Now, finally, Dianne, it's also understood that a coalition of civil organizations known as Koparang Africa handed a memorandum to the police calling for the disbandment of Operation Dudula. The organization further called for the Home Affairs Minister to step down. How have the organization's recent efforts been received?
Yes, absolutely. I think this has been quite an interesting development. The march that was held by the Kopanong Africa group was quite a large group, and this march took place on Saturday. We saw them marching towards the police station in Johannesburg and actually, interacting or meeting up with some of the Operation Dudula members. As far as their requests, there hasn't been a response from the SAPS as yet. We know that the Minister of Home Affairs, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, has responded in some media reports saying that he found the call for his resignation outrageous. Of course, there are some issues within the Department of Home Affairs that have been raised over time, such as the process of getting asylum seeker status. That has been a major concern. Getting paperwork in general as a migrant worker has been a concern. And there have been allegations of victimization from Home Affairs Department staff. That's an allegation that's been made by some migrants, saying that they are victimized, requested for their paperwork, and taken to the Lindela Repatriation Center without proper processes being followed. However, the Department of Home Affairs, hasn't fully responded to the calls by this group as yet. We also know that there is an ongoing process by the Department of Labor to resolve issues around migrant workers in the country. And I think that with all of these issues taking place, there might be a bit more urgency put into resolving some of these concerns. It looks like things are reaching a point where it's approaching a powder keg situation.
Thank you very much, Dianne, for your contributions. Always a pleasure having you join us.
Thank you.